Hi, good night. Welcome to Conversation with Rickford Burke. This is Rickford Burke. Share the link. It's good to see everybody. I hope you guys had a great week so far. I'm fresh off the protest last night, so I'm hyped, I'm energized. So share the link. Keep sharing the link to those of you who are in the United States, as I normally say. Good night if you're on the West Coast. Good evening. If you're in Europe, good morning. Africa, good morning. Asia, good morning. Those of you in Guyana, the Caribbean, good night. Hope you had a wonderful day. For those of you in Africa or wherever else you are, and it's a day, I hope you're having it's daytime. I hope you're having a good day. Share this thing to everybody. Get into your Guyanese groups. Get into your Facebook Messenger groups. Get on your email. Get on your WhatsApp. Get on your IG. Get into Twitter. Get wherever. Share this link. We'll be right back. All right. Again, welcome back to Conversation with Rickford Burke. Keep sharing this link. Keep sharing this link. Everybody, I see about several thousands of you here. 2,000, going on 3,000. Keep sharing the link. Share the link. We'll be talking about some really good topic tonight. Keep sharing the link. Share the link. And first, as we know, we had I'm not sure why this thing is shaking, but as you know, we had the protest yesterday. We had the PPP in house yesterday. We had the protest. So let me give you a chance to see a part of that protest yesterday. I'm not sure if our technical guys have it. Let me see. I'm waiting to hear what they have to say. Let's see.
Fair, even as they come, when they go to speak, they will speak things that they ought not to speak. Amen. Versus PPP. PPP. PPP.
All right, so that's the arrival. That's the arrival. Keep sharing the link. We'll talk about this when I get back on the other side. Keep sharing. All right. So keep sharing the link. Keep sharing the link. So that went done yesterday. So in addition to that, well, let me give you a lay of the land as of yesterday. So we have very good relationship with the church. I go to that church sometimes. I know the pastor very well. My aunt goes to that church. Two of my aunts go to that church, as a matter of fact. So we use that church for our events. We've had our town halls meeting there. We've had the town hall on the Guyana-Venezuela border issue there. We've had about 3 or 4 town hall meetings there. We had a meeting there with the team from Guyana, the members of parliament that came up for the August 15th event. So we have a very good relationship with that church. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't do anything to desecrate that church, even though the event yesterday was not held in the sanctuary. It was held in the church hall. So that's a very big building. They have 2 halls in that church. So one of the halls was used for that PPP so-called investment meeting. Now, when we get there, as usual, the protesters, under 200 or so protesters, they were, very boisterous, made a very big impact. The police was impressed with the way we organized the protest. As you see there, we had a music truck with a DJ playing relevant music with a microphone. We had all the elements of a really good protest there. The installed Prime Minister Mark Phillips arrived. Gail Teixeira arrived. She's a long-standing PPP jagabat, so to speak. Colin Crowell was there as well. And the diaspora advisor here, who's, as far as I'm concerned, is acting or performing the duties of a consul general, was also there, Mr. Joe, I forget his last name. It's going to come to me just now. And so we were there, and we had the protest. Some of the PP activists that were there were trying to get the police to get us to move the truck with the music, as usual. This is New York. That was not going to happen. Keep sharing the link. Keep sharing this link. So we had the protest there. Chris Banks from Black Lives Matter, who the PP has been attacking, was there with loud hail, or bullhorn, as we call it, as usual. So at some point in time, when night fell, Chris and I wanted to go inside to make sure that there were people in there confronting these installed house slave and racists about their actions, about what's going on in Guyana, and about their attacks on the congressman, because they were in the congressman's district. And Chris was very adamant about going in to ask them the question. So, once we decided to go inside, of course, CGID, the organizer, who apparently is the lobbyist for PP, Mr. Wesley Curtin, had sent a message to me telling me that we were invited, and that I've always been saying that Black business persons are not getting an opportunity under the PPP to establish businesses, to get contracts, and so on. So he was saying that since I'm making that argument, here's an opportunity. But I know it was a talk shop. I know it was a PR stunt. I know that these people wanted to replicate what we did, which is bring all these members of parliament here, have a forum at the same venue, and talk their propaganda. So I know that there was no tangible business venture that would yield from this event. So that part of it I dismissed. I know it was going to be a political talk shop. But so we had designated 2 members to, accept that invitation. Those members did not attend. So Chris wanted to make sure, and I wanted to make sure we confront them. So we went into the building and we stood at the door. And we were waiting for our turn to ask a question at the door. In the meantime, we were engaging the senior police officer on scene, who Chris and I both know from the borough of Brooklyn, and who was Haitian. It's ironic that these installed ministers and the prime minister, whose government banned the Haitians from coming to Guyana, and subsequently, after an outcry, so as to cover it up, implemented a visa requirement for Haitians to come to Guyana. And the person there who was in charge of them to make sure that they were safe and that we were safe was a Haitian lieutenant. And if you guys look at the video again, you'll see him there in the white shirt. When the car started to arrive, he went up to Chris and told Chris to step aside a little bit. And so he stood there and made sure that his officers, ensured that everybody was safe. So it was the Haitian police that protected these racists. Haitian police officer, a Haitian lieutenant, who they would not even allow to travel to Guyana because they're in government, because they're racist. They want him to come to Guyana because he's Black and he's Haitian. He's standing there protecting them. What hypocrisy. How ironic. Anyway, so we were chatting with him and so on. And when I entered first, like I related earlier, I was standing at the doorway. And so the doorway is at the back to the side of the building. So it was, I was standing, at the side of how the audience was structured, but towards the back. So when I walked in, from that door, standing in the doorway, I could see the entire, the entire audience from back to front, but the door is to the back of the audience. So the Prime Minister, there was a video presentation going on, and so he and the ministers, Kroll, they were sitting to the back, looking at the video presentation. Gaita Sher was also at the back, but then she walked and she went straight past us and she was asking if the protest was still going on. So she was more interested in the protest. She wanted to see what was going on. She wanted to know, oh gosh, one of these people gone because we're about to finish. So then she turned to Chris Banks. She didn't even know it was Chris Banks she was talking to because I'm standing right there. I guess they don't recognize me because I had on my mask. So she saw to Chris Banks and she asked Chris, oh, the protest is still going on. And so she went outside. She went into the lobby area of the church, but not on the outside. And she was looking, peeping through the door. And she's like, oh, they're playing music now. They're not hostile anymore. They're not yelling. They're partying out there. And she walked back inside. So as she was out there, the Prime Minister looked at me and he signaled to me from his seat. And he said, come, come, come. So I looked back. I'm like, who is calling, me or somebody behind me? So then he said, you, come. So Chris and I, we were moving together. So we walked from the door to the back of the audience where he was sitting. And I said, good night. And he said, good night, have a seat, have a seat. So I said, no, we're not here to stay. We were just observing. And we went back to the door. So about 3 minutes after that, or 4 minutes after that, the video presentation ended. Keep sharing the link, Talking about a very important subject here. So the video presentation ended. And Mark Phillips then walked back to the podium. to the head table where he was sitting to face the audience. And then he spoke with somebody there, I think it was Gail Teixeira and somebody else, and then he ran, like he literally bolted back to the door to me. And as he was coming, I guess that's when he realized it was me standing in the doorway. So he literally moved very quickly, like briskly, almost like running. And he came to me. And he's on his way to me. He said, I want to make sure I have a picture, a photograph of Mr. Burke. And then he said, well, I know it's going to be all over social media, but I want to have a photograph to show that I am here to commit to Mr. Burke, that he is dedicated to a one Guyana policy, and that everything he's doing in government and his government, they are working towards ensuring that whatever they do is for all Guyanese, whatever, and towards a one Guyana policy. And so, by the way, he took the mic and said that after he posed for a photograph with me. And he was shaking my hand all the time. He was so elated to meet me. He was shaking my hand. Literally, he was shaking my hand for like 2 minutes. So, of course, I'm a polite, civil human being. I don't have any problems with the gentleman, even though he represents a very racist government. I then took the microphone from him, and I said, no, he said, their one Guyana policy include those people out there protesting. So I took the microphone and said, well, we're protesting. The people outside are protesting because we don't believe there's a one Guyana policy under the PPP, or at least a one Guyana policy, something to that effect, I said. And I said, seeing that you're the Prime Minister, I want you to ensure that there's justice, equality, fairness, and balance in the country. Well, as I was saying that, he was trying to tell me, hurry up, give him back the microphone. So, of course, I didn't want to cause any problems with the people. And that's not what we were there for. We were there to ask the question about why they were attacking the congressman, and they're in his district now. Why are they doing that? So he took back the microphone and he acknowledged what I said on behalf of the protesters. And he said, everything I asked there would be upheld, whatever that means. I guess it means that the government would honor that. We know that that's not going to happen. We know that's not happening now. So he took the microphone and he went back to his seat. Sorry, he went back to his seat. And we stood there until it was time to ask the question, about 5 minutes or so. Chris asked the question. Chris Banks asked why they were making these comments about Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, why they were attacking him when he's speaking for democracy, and that he's the most senior, most powerful Black federal official in Washington. So why? So of course, the Prime Minister said that he had responded to the Congressman's comments. Congressman spoke at the anti-PPP racism rally. And all the Congressman said was Black Lives Matter, whether it's in Guyana, America, or anywhere else in the world, Black Lives Matter. And then he went on to say, the United States government will not tolerate racism, racially motivated violence, bigotry, racial hatred, and intolerance. That's all the man said that the PPP is objecting to. So Mark Phillips said he took umbrage to that, and he was appalled. He was appalled that the congressman said those things. And then Gail Teixeira said that she was very respectful and has always been respectful of the congressman because she's read about all his accomplishments and his academic excellence and so on. Crap. But she lied because she did attack the congressman. She said it was a forum, it was a racist forum. So she too was calling the congressman racist for participating in a racist forum, according to her. But then they all skipped over the fact that Barry Jack there 3 days ago called the congressman a racist. So I put up my hand and I was standing there. I got the microphone from the pastor. And I was standing there and there was a little bit of hesitancy about, because I wanted to speak right away on the subject to correct the record. weren't having none of it. And I noticed Kroll telling Curtin something when I was about to speak, but I had the microphone in my hand. And I was not going to be, denied that right to speak. So I just said, they didn't recognize me, but I just said what I had to say anyway. And I said, Barrett Jagdale also called the congressman a racist. I want you guys to address that. Both of them look at each other, everybody look at each other like, well, I know what language he talking about. And they didn't respond to me. So at that point in time, we went outside back. So we left the meeting, we left there, we went outside back, because that was our mission to ask the question. So we went outside back. And I was relating to the protesters who were out there still. By this time it's getting late, like 9 o'clock. What happened inside and how they didn't respond to my question. And so while I was doing that, giving them an account of what transpired inside, O.C. Rogers, who is a PP operative up here, black guy, came to the fence, the church fence, called me, and said, the Prime Minister would like to have a meeting with you. And I said to him, well, I have to decline because I don't think this is the right environment. So let me say this. I believe that there must be dialogue. The purpose of my advocacy, the purpose of the advocacy of CGID is not for any political party. It is for the people of Guyana. The people who the PPP has been discriminated against. The people who are the family members of all these young men, black men, who have been murdered by the PPP death squad or by police officers, who to date have not been held to account. Or in the case of the Henry boys, PPP supporters who murdered them. We are not here to please anybody. Our advocacy, Gore, CGID, myself, is not to satisfy any individual. We are not too mindful of anybody who wants to call us selfish because we went into the PPP meeting to question them, because we had the gall, because we had the temerity, because we have the will to challenge them wherever they are, even if it's in their meeting. So we don't really care what anybody else have to say, especially people who are not involved in the struggle, people who are armchair generals, people who are staying at home, while those of us involved in this struggle fight every day for the people. I believe that we're not doing this in vain. I believe that we're doing this with a purpose. And our mission is that the issues we're advocating for must be resolved, even if it takes foreign intervention to bring everybody together for a resolution. That's what we are fighting for. We cannot allow the PPP to have all the political space in Guyana. We cannot allow the PPP to act as though Guyana is a one-party state. We cannot allow the PPP to disregard the Constitution and say we are not consulting with the opposition. It is a mandate of the Constitution. And as much as we are saying the government is an installed government, they're the government. They have the majority of the seats in Parliament, regardless of how they got them, whether it's by fraudulent votes or invalid votes, a fraudulent installation. They're in the seat of government. And if to the extent that they're in the seat of government, until there's a resolution of the elections petition or a resolution of whether or not their election is legitimate, valid, and legal, they are in the seat of government. And if they are in the seat of government, they must honor the law. And the law requires equity. The law requires fairness. The law requires justice, equal justice. And the law requires them to govern the country and provide opportunity and resources for all of the people. This is not Trump administration. And to the extent that they're doing that, we have to hold them to account. And not only hold them to account, we have to force accountability. We have to hammer them every day We have to point out their wrongdoings. We have to point out their criminalities. We have to expose their racism every day, regardless of where they are. Whether it's in Dubai, where some of them are heading now, whether it's in Miami, New York, Barbados, London, we have a responsibility to go wherever they are and challenge them. Keep sharing the link. Keep sharing the link. And challenge them. We are doing it in New York. Fearlessly. Fearlessly. I'm not scared of Mark Phillips or whoever it is. We will go and confront them wherever they are. And because we are advocating for the rights of the people, not for any one person, not for any one person's interest, not for any political party, for the people. It so happened that our interests are aligned with the coalition. But believe you me, if at any time the coalition or any other political entity in Guyana act outside of the values we believe in, the interests of the people who we advocate for, we will speak out against them as well. We would picket them. And I've been doing that. Some of the people in the PNC don't like me because of that, because I speak out whenever I see wrongdoing, injustice, or actions or decisions contrary to the interests of the majority of the people who voted for the PNC, or decisions that are not in the interest of the country, the nation as a whole. So, having said all that, let me say, I am not closing the door to dialogue. I'm amenable to dialogue. Any person involved in advocacy or politics that tells you that they're not amenable to dialogue, that they don't want dialogue, all they want to do is picket and picket and picket and protest, to what end? There has to be a mission. There has to be an objective. And the objective is to have a resolution of the issues that we're advocating for, including equity in economic development, equity in government contracts, equity in allocation of land, equity in the distribution and expenditures of the resources of the people. We have to disabuse ourselves of this thing about the PPP in government and they controlling things. No, it's the people's resources. So all the regions and the towns and the village councils or neighborhood democratic councils that they're refusing to fund because they think they own the money, no, we got to force them to be accountable. We have to force them to make sure that the resources of Region 4 go to the people of Region 4 and Region 7 and Region 10. It is not a privilege they're doing. They're the government. They have a mandate to allocate resources equitably. And they're starving. Look at the condition of Georgetown. Georgetown is the capital city. Look at the condition of Georgetown. They're deliberately starving Georgetown for funds because the people of Georgetown didn't vote for them. That alone should disqualify them from government. And they're doing the same thing in Region 4. And they're doing the same thing in Region 7, Bartica, Caribbean, Mazaruni region. And they're doing the same thing in Linden, Region 10, Upper Demerara, Upper Berbice region, where mostly Black people are. And then when you go into the regions that they control because they had the majority of vote, Region 5, Region 3, Region 2, Region 6, Region 9, Region 8. Well, they didn't win Region 8, but somebody switched from Justice and whatever party and joined with the PPP. That's how they got a regional Democratic Council seat, the chairmanship of that region. But when you go into the neighborhood councils that administer the Black villages, they're starving those villages for funds too. Can't happen. They're giving all of their East Indian supporters contracts. They even took away the ability of the Guyana Police Force and the GDF to procure their own weapons. They gave it to one of their friends, a man who's a friend of the president. Ain't no nothing but arms dealing. But they give it to him because they give him a security license. And it's billions of dollars they're going to be dealing with. And it also gives him enough leeway to stockpile arms for himself. And then they're giving away all the prime land in the country to their own people. We're saying, no, 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 we want equity. Equal allocation of land. Equal government contracts. When I say equal, I mean opposition and race. There must be a mechanism to oversee, an oversight mechanism to oversee these things. Because Black people in Guyana would not be left behind in terms of economic development and benefits from the resources and the natural patrimony of Guyana. No. We already have a vast wealth gap where PPP supporters control commerce in the country. They control the private sector. They control banks. So Black people can't have access to funding to start a small business or to build a house. And when Trevor Ben and his team at the Public Service Credit Union developed a plan to give Black public servants who are mostly Black, don't misquote me, public servants who are mostly Black, when they developed a plan to make sure that public servants can get access to loans to build homes, to buy farmlands or whatever they want to do with their land, and to buy cars, the government blocked it, tried to block it, or they have blocked it. The audacity of these people. And then, Bar Jack there, when the others like to complain, well, the public service has so many Black people. Well, hell yeah, you're right, because Indian people don't go into the public service. But nobody is complaining that, well, the private sector have too many Indian people. Or the agriculture industry has too many Indian people. Or the business sector has too many Indian people. That's just the structure of the society. And we accept when they bring this nonsense to us. We don't respond. But we here in the diaspora, we're responding. Because we know BS when we see it. So if you're going to complain that the police force has too many Black people, you must complain too that the rice industry has too many Indians. You must complain that the sugarcane industry has too many Indians. Because the Indians do not gravitate towards those services. And I'm speaking in general terms. You will find 3%, 4%, 5%, maybe 8% of Indians in the police force or the Guyana Defense Force, as opposed to 80-something or 90-something% African, because that's their preference, that's their skill set, that's what they want, that's how they're oriented, that's the culture. And you can't change that by attempting to implement some form of affirmative action by stop recruiting Blacks or stop promoting Blacks and rapidly promote Indians so that they could be catapulted to senior positions in the fire service, the Guyana Defense Force, the police force, or the prison service. But you're not taking that same corrective, so-called corrective, affirmative action in the sugar industry, in the rice industry, in the banking industry, in the private sector. And so tonight I'm saying that that argument that they're making has no value because of the structure of the society. And if you're going to complain about one thing and you want to fix it, fix the other thing. So we're saying that there must be a mechanism for Black people who they are starving for resources to establish and run businesses and industries and to purchase homes and to buy cars, there must be a fair and balanced mechanism for Black people in Guyana, African Guyanese, and Amerindians, and some East Indians to access finance. There must be a review of the banking industry's performance. I want to see an analysis of one, banking regulations. That is the banking regulations that the government used to regulate banks. We want to have a review of that. We want to have a review of all of the loans approved by banks, by race, by region. Let us do that analysis. And based on that analysis, the government must enact policies to make sure that there's fairness and make sure that there's equal wealth distribution. Equal distribution of the resources of the state straight across the society. And why we're saying this, look what's happening with the cash grants. They're not giving Black people these cash grants. I've never seen cash grants in any country in the world to this extent. I know the governments are giving grants or aid to people. They find mechanisms to get it to people's account, or they mail a check to you. This one here giving their supporters billions of dollars to go out to the field and go house to house. By the time they reach 3 house, they thief 3 million. By the time they reach the next 6 house, 6 more million gone. And they're PPP operatives, so they are not giving people who don't support the government the money, their own money, taxpayers' money. Let us examine the sugarcane industry. Sugar workers, who we know are the backbone of PPP support, right? The sugarcane workers got the $25,000 cash grant, supposedly for COVID relief. On top of that, some of them who were farmers, or who aren't even farmers, got an additional grant for flood. Some hundreds of thousands of dollars. On top of that, Barry Jack there just agreed to give them $250,000 each. And that is on top of their severance pay, which the APNU government gives them, APNU-FC coalition government gives them. And they're lying to you when they say they never received severance. Every one of those sugarcane workers got severance pay. And the APNU coalition didn't check their race before they give them. They give them it across the board. In addition to that, some of them were retrained at the expense of the government to be employed in other sectors of the country. So that's not fairness. And check this out. The government fired over 2,000 Black people from the government service. Why? Because they're race, they're Black. And they also fired some East Indians and Amerindians who don't support them. All in all, that's over 2,000 going on 3,000. They gave them no severance, nothing. Some of the people are suing them for their benefits owed in accordance with their contracts. They even give them 25,000 severance, but they're giving the sugarcane workers 250,000, and they're telling us there's no racism. In addition to that, I just noticed today that some Black farmers in Region 5 were picketing today in Mahaica or somewhere in that vicinity. And one of the news stations went up there and interviewed the people. They're all Black farmers. Not one of them received assistance from the government for the flood relief, which, according to the PPP, the flood relief is supposed to be for farmers whose farms were flooded and they couldn't harvest their produce. It was destroyed. So this so-called flood relief should be based on assessment of the losses of the farmers. And like I said, some people got over 1 million, 5 million, 500,000 East Indians in Berbice got that. And the poor black farmers got nothing. So after that was exposed today, I understand that the Minister of Agriculture went up there and I met them and said that they'll get their money by today. Why black people gotta be rowing and exposing and picketing for rightful, lawful benefits as citizens of the country? Why we in New York have to picket the government and demonstrate and protest for justice, which under the law, the government must ensure. That's a mandate of the government. The first mandate of a government is to ensure security and justice of the citizenry. That's the first mandate of a government. Preeminent responsibility. There's nothing more sacred than protecting the people. And you do that by ensuring justice and safety, security and protection. That is the foremost responsibility of a government. But no, this one here, they're like Trump. They only believe in the safety and protection of their East Indian support base. That's the reality. Why people must fight for equity. Not one black contractor so far has gotten a contract in the oil and gas industry. Not one. Not one black businessman has gotten lands to do oil and gas or gas to shore project or oil and gas project, to provide support services for the industry. Not one. Whether it's downstream, upstream, whatever. Not one. Why? I've seen on October 8th, the government give infrastructure contracts to 9 business people, all East Indian. They never shame. Following day, $3.1 billion contract, infrastructure, 19 East Indians. What? One of the reasons we're advocating is we want equity and equality. So any discussion that we're going to have has to revolve around these issues. House lots. And this is a failure of all the administrations coming down the road. Guyana is a country of 83,000 square miles. Only 19% is inhabited, if so much. Why are we not bursting the country open and creating new towns, new housing communities? Why aren't we creating industrial parks and build new communities around those industries? You need people to maintain these industries. You could build whole new towns and communities by just opening one industry. They're flouncing themselves all around the place, spending taxpayers' dollars. No meaningful industry has come to the country. Why don't we go to Ford or General Motors or Chrysler or Range Rover? And Range Rover is part of Ford. And ask them to build a plant in Guyana. We have vast lands. One of the issues with that, though, is that the country doesn't have the electricity capacity for an industrialized country. We got a jokey electricity grid, so somebody blow blackout. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why successive governments can't get electricity right. If you can't do it, go to another country and ask them for help. Simple. Why do you have ambassadors? It's a disgrace that in 2021, that we have a country, supposedly an oil and gas nation, oil and gas producing country, that is incapable of providing electricity for residents, for homes, much less industries. And we're talking about bringing investment to the country. So that's one of the things impeding investment by these major industrialized companies, major industries. We don't have the electricity capacity to power industries. So if those companies come to the country, they have to build their own electricity capacity. But even so, at least go and make a pitch to them. Let us see you working. Let us see a so-called installed minister or prime minister meeting with Ford, meeting with Boeing, the manufacturers of aircraft, talking about coming to the country and building up a plant, an assembly plant. Talk to Toyota, talk to Firestone Tire Company. Our people have the ability to work for these people. Labor in Guyana would be cheaper. We can speak English. Why aren't we seeing these things come into the country? And these government people are flying all over the world talking about investment conference. Millions of dollars they're spending talking about investment conference. But back to the point, we're saying we want to see equal investments, equal opportunity. Equal opportunity. And another thing they're doing, and they think that we're stupid, because we have been pointing out their racism, they're appointing 1 or 2 token black people in these companies and then advertise them. Oh, we're putting out today the board of Guyana Water Inc. This African Guyanese, that African Guyanese. Oh, today we're putting out the board of this and that. Those people have no power. So what they're doing, they're adding insult to injury by making cosmetic appointments. But then they have their own people in the ministry or in the corporation like Guyana Water Inc., where they make their own decisions and give it to these African Guyanese people to execute. They're not decision makers. They're not at the table making the decisions. And that's not what we want. We don't want whitewash positions. We want to be at the table. It is our country. And then we want justice. Justice. We want an investigation into the death squad's killing by an international commission of inquiry. A commission agreed to by all sides. No shenanigans about the scope of the investigation, the terms of reference, nonsense like if this is a political game. No. We want an investigation into the death squad killings. We want a proper investigation led by an international law enforcement agency, whether the FBI or Scotland Yard or whomever, not no RSS, into the deaths of the Henry boys, the death of Mr. Boston, the death of Mr. Andrew. We want justice. Justice for black people. Justice for people who don't support the government but who they murdered. And then we want an investigation into the spending habits of this government. We want a thorough review of this regional security force that they're forming that is supposed to be a spy agency. And we want a proper investigation into these police killings of young black men that are happening up to today. I saw Attorney at Law Nigel Hughes put out a statement today where he quoted Justice Joan Barlow chastising the DPP. They prosecuted a man all the way to trial for murder. A black man. All the way from the police arresting him to the magistrate doing a preliminary inquiry and committing him to stand trial in the High Court with absolutely no evidence. None. They have no evidence against this man, but right through we see the racism. That's a black man, he's guilty of murder, committee, charge. Magistrate, black man, he must be guilty of murder, committee, High Court. where the case puts up to a judge that is honoring her oath of office to uphold the Constitution and the laws of Guyana. And she's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Where's the evidence? DP is like, Your Honor, we have no evidence. Seriously, the DPP, the prosecutor, acknowledged to the judge today, they have no evidence upon which to proceed with the prosecution. But they had this man in jail since 2016 for murder. This is like racist America. That should never happen. That should never happen. That alone causes a commission of inquiry. Not necessary to chastise people, but if you find people committed wrongdoing, chastise them. Remove them from their positions. That requires an investigation. Let me see what the government of Guyana will do. Tonight, I'm saying there must be an investigation into this to make sure that we put systems in place that nonsense doesn't happen again. You put a black man in jail for, what, 5 years? With absolutely no evidence. It's not a situation where you say, oh, well, we didn't have access to DNA or forensic evidence. You ain't got no bloody evidence, none. You just go by what the police want. Catch the man there, charge him for murder. Why? We want to put him away from society. He chop him a wife, he chop him a girlfriend, I don't like he black, whatever. For whatever reason, they charge this man and put him in jail. And the magistrate's court agreed with it. The DPP agreed with it first. The DPP agreed with it. Incompetent dunces at the DPP's office. I'm sure some of them aren't incompetent dunces. But whoever did in this case had to be incompetent. Or at least malicious. And racist. We know the DPPs are racist. I say so. Because she discontinued the charges against all the East Indians in the PPP. With evidence of fraud. But she has no evidence in this man's case. And she went to prosecute him for murder. Got the magistrate to agree. Commit the man for murder. With no evidence. And thank God for the judge who, based on her expressions, could not believe her eyes. And she chastised them. I'm sure she had the power, she would have ordered an investigation. But so I'm saying that any discussion must include a framework for a review of all of these issues and for a mechanism for a thorough investigation that must lead to prosecutions and people to be held to the fullest account of the law. So, what I'm saying is, all of this that we're doing must lead somewhere. We can't go on protesting perpetually. Must have a resolution. And even if we have to bring the PPP government to its knees, we must bring them to their knees. Until there's a resolution. You hear me? If we have to bring them to their knees, we will bring them to their knees. There must be a resolution of the issues I've articulated. So when you see us protesting, we're protesting in the interest of the people, and we're advocating for the issues that I just mentioned. So I don't care about people who think that me talking to the Prime Minister is selfish activism. Trash, nonsense. I don't answer to people who don't have an end game. people who don't understand the strategy that we're pursuing. This is not a job. Nobody pays us. Those people out there that came out to protest yesterday, they have jobs, they have homes, they have families to manage. But they came out there because of a commitment to the people of Guyana. I went out there because of my commitment to the people. I don't pay me. We don't collect money from anybody for anything. Everything we did there yesterday was self-funded. We pooled our monies. And we did it. Everything that we did for the anti-racism march that came up to thousands of dollars, we did it ourselves. We, the members of GOR and CGID, did it ourselves. And some special friends made special arrangements and helped us in certain special ways. So it's easy for people to talk without knowing what your strategy is. We are answerable to ourselves in the organization. We are answerable to ourselves. We account to the people on the board and in the organization. That's how organizations function. We don't account to nobody in Guyana. No PNC or Coalition or AFC or API. No, we're not. Let them carry out their own strategy in Guyana. We have ours that we stick to with discipline and determination. And we are saying that the PPP must come to the table or else they will live in misery. They could pretend that everything is hunky-dory good. But we will keep intensifying the pressure. And like I said, we're going to Washington. We're going to meet with the White House. We're going to meet with the Congressional Black Caucus. And beyond that, and we're going to meet with the international agencies that help finance projects in Guyana. And we're going to campaign to the corporations, American companies that are doing business in Guyana, to let them know they're doing business with an apartheid regime. And that they too will feel the squeeze if they cannot put pressure on the PPP to stop their racist policies and practices. PP can't ignore us forever. Marajal, could go on critic and talk all the nonsense he wants. We're going to bring the government to its knees. We're going to cripple the government. We're going to make the country ungovernable until there's an end to racism. Don't pretend it doesn't exist. Don't pretend you all don't know what we're talking about. Don't complain that Burke said he's going to bring the government to his knees. Yes, Burke said he will bring the government to his knees if they continue to practice an apartheid governance and racism. To practice racism. That's what we're saying. And that's why tonight I've taken the time to tell them this is not going to go on forever. We ain't going to protest forever. At some point in time, you're going to just bring everything to an end. And at that point in time, the PPP will have an opportunity to govern. They'll have to come to the table. They will have to come to the table. And we're going to do it by all means necessary. We got to whip out the whole world. We will do it. Because Black people in Ghana are not going through 5 years of this crap. You hear me? Black people in Guyana not going through 5 years of this nonsense, 23 years, like what? No. East Indians who don't support the PPP not going through 25 years of this crap, 5 years. sorry, 5. The Amerindian communities that they're trying to disenfranchise, not going through 5 years of this. We will mobilize them to rebel. Because no government can be unjust and a tyranny to the people. We're going to mobilize a resistance, and we're going to mobilize a rebellion, and we're going to mobilize the people to bring the government to its knees. That's my message tonight. So, let me say this. I see the PPP all over the place talking about Burke with the Prime Minister. Like I said on Sherrod Show, if I knew that they were sending the Prime Minister to New York just to have a handshake with me and to celebrate it, I would have given them a hug. Because they must feel that there's some sort of import and value to that. Right? They're spending, because the whole trip of this investment conference was a sham. It was a waste of time. It was a failure. The people of Guyana should ask back for their money. And there were 2 trips as I close. There were 2 venues, 2 meetings, one in Miami, one in Brooklyn. It was not about investment. Nobody benefited from anything to do with investment. It was a political outreach. It was a mimic. It was plagiarism of what Gore did in New York. They wanted to send their elected officials in the Black community, having had Barjak, they were in Rickford Ali in the Indian community 2 weeks ago. They are so hurt by the anti-racism rally that they had to send a few house slaves and racist Gail Teixeira and Colin Crowell to so-called the Black diaspora. And it was a complete failure. I understand they paid $10,000 to $15,000 to the organizer. The people should demand their money back. Because in Miami, they had a party for the second lady, Prime Minister's wife. Well, at least I have nothing against the people. But if that's where you're coming for, Cessna, man, you can't spend $10,000 on an event and have derelict-looking people there. I don't mean to insult anybody, but I'm just saying, going based on the photographs, they look like a couple of them were high, had a lot of liquor, Demerara distilleries, whatever was there. El Dorado rum. It was a drinking session, maybe. I don't know, but they look drunk. Some of them look like they just picked them off the street and just packed them in the plate. I don't know. In New York, it was worse. We had more decorated tables. I must admire it. The tables were well decorated, but they were empty. Like I said, they had about 15 people, and the rest were staff members and organizers and security. They spent millions of dollars on this trip. Nothing was achieved. Like I said, some people who left the meeting told me nothing was achieved. Nobody could come and say, here's a plan that was accepted, and I'm going into Guyana to build this or to establish this. No. All they did was show videos. It was like a political campaign of what the government has done, what the government is doing, and all the projects. No investment came out of that meeting, none. Best they had taken that money and given it to the poor Black farmers in Mahaika. Or a couple of them people in the Amerindian villages who didn't get the COVID grant because they don't support the PP. Or who need money for their roads, or to feed their children, or to buy school clothes. That money should have gone to those people. But they were given to high-flying lobbyists. And it was spent on meals and accommodation and first-class tickets to come to Brooklyn to meet with boisterous protesters, get a handshake from Rickford Burke, and go home. Waste of money. And like I said on Sherrod's show earlier tonight, I hope the members of Parliament from the APN, you would demand the Auditor General audit this trip. Tell the people how this money was spent. How much money was spent on the birthday party in Miami? How much money was spent buying liquor? Drunking all the people at this forum. They wanted to do a successful event like we did, where the members of parliament came here. It was a charade. It was no investment, no investment. Nothing. What result do they have to show for this? I noticed the organizer saying they're satisfied with the forum. Is the government of Guyana satisfied with what transpired in Brooklyn last night? More empty chairs and tables than people? A massive, boisterous protest? That's what they brought these people here for? To sit in a room that they had to pay for with empty tables and empty chairs to talk nonsense and to leave with nothing in hand, no potential investment, no solid proposal for an investment? Why were they here? They were here in Brooklyn to plagiarize what we did, bring members of parliament and ministers here to talk about the PPP and how good they are, how they are not racist. Believe you me, we are not racist. Even if I have to cry, said Gail, we are not racist. She didn't say that. I'm just saying that. They achieved nothing. It was a complete disaster. It was a failure. The people of Brooklyn had more sense. They did not go anywhere. Instead, they came out and they protested this attempted PPP copycat meeting in Brooklyn. Black people in Brooklyn got sense, you know. Keep that thing in Queens. And I know some good Indian friends in Queens who got sense too. But all in all, I want to thank everybody. The protesters, you guys, you did well. The members of GORE, the members of CGI, the members of Black Lives Matter. Chris Banks, thank you. Thank you for confronting the installed Prime Minister, the installed Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance, who could not give an account of the mendacious letter she wrote to the members of Congress, attacking Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, undermining Guyana-US relations. I wonder when Sarah Lynch going to do what they'll do. What are they going to do? So we had a good protest. The struggle continues. We will not relent. We will not give up. We will press on. And as I said, even if we have to bring this government to their knees, we will do it. We're determined to do it. We're determined to end racism in Guyana. We're determined to see the back of racists. So if there's going to be any dialogue, let it be about the issues I outlined tonight. If the government was serious with investment, they would come here and tell us we have 2 million acres of land that we want the diaspora to come and take up and build homes and build housing developments and build industries and build stores and build. That's what you do. If you're interested in the diaspora involvement, diaspora's involvement in development, come and tell us. We want you to bid for this contract. We're leaving these contracts for the diaspora. We want to rewire the whole of Breakdown Police Station when it built. So we want an electrical contractor from the diaspora. We want to build a road to Venezuela. So we want an engineer from the diaspora to design the road and manage the project. That's diaspora involvement in development. Come and tell us that we want to give the diaspora an oil block. So we form a company and we're inviting the diaspora to buy shares in the company. That's involvement in development. Don't come and tell us nonsense about who rig election and how much y'all do and y'all have to go back and fix the airport. We're not interested in that. We're interested in participating in the development of the country. We're interested in opportunities. That's what we're interested in. Come again. Come back and tell us when you're ready to tell us how much land we're going to get or we could go and purchase without a hassle. Come and tell us about oil blocks that we could buy or companies in which we could invest and buy shares without a hassle. Come and tell us about projects we must bid on to build roads and homes and hospitals and cocas and city fences and desilting the canals. We have engineers who could do all of that. Come and tell us about that. Until then, keep your nonsense political propaganda and rhetoric. Don't come back to Brooklyn until you have a solid plan for development and the diaspora's participation in the development projects of the country. Good night, everybody. Thank you guys very much for listening. I hope that I made some sense, and I hope that I have outlined to the installed regime the principles that govern any engagement from CJID or Gore with the regime. Thanks. Good night, everybody. Be safe.